Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. I'll fix that. Check.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This panel discussion is put on in collaboration with the St. Kitts Nevis National Cooperative League and the Department of Cooperatives. Let us first reverence the Almighty by standing for prayer as we call one of our cooperators, Mr. Solomon Morton, to lead us in prayer.
Let's bow our heads in a word of prayer. Almighty God and Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the privilege of coming together to hear, to share, to learn. We come this afternoon following in your footsteps, for you said, "Let us make man." The spirit of cooperative was operational then. And we pray as we meet this afternoon, Lord, to discuss, to impart, to learn, that that very spirit would so be within us, among us, and Lord, so that we would be able to learn, so that at the end of the day, we would be better cooperative members, and the benefits would reach throughout the length and the breadth of our nation. We commit this meeting into your hand. We ask that you bless the participants, those who will be sharing, those who will be guiding, and even for those who are in their seats that will be listening and learning. Open our understanding, grant us all wisdom. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. And so, everyone, on behalf of the Department of Cooperatives, I warmly welcome you to what I believe will be a truly meaningful conversation. And I think that it has been long overdue. I also feel that it is necessary for the future of our federation. So we are gathered here today in the space of the Kuna Conference Center, and it is a space that itself stands as a testament to what ordinary people can achieve when they come together with a common purpose. We're here to discuss something that sits at the very heart of how we grow and how we govern as a nation. That something is the cooperative movement. In Ecclesiastes 4:9, that's part of the scripture that was used in the service on Sunday, where part of that scripture says, "Two are better than one." I think that it pairs beautifully with the cooperative theme for this panel discussion. So, the relevance of cooperatives in the nation building of St. Kitts and Nevis. As our nation continues to develop, and as our economy evolves, and our communities face new and complex challenges, we must honestly ask ourselves, are we making the most of what cooperatives have to offer? And what can cooperatives do in the face of nation building? I think that these are some questions that we bring to the panel today. And I am honored to be joined by a distinguished group of seasoned panelists, men and women who bring years of experience, insight, and passion to the subject. And so together they will guide us through a rich conversation on how cooperatives can continue to serve not just their members, but the broader community, the broader society, strengthening communities, creating economic resilience, and contributing to the long-term development of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce our panelists for this evening. On my far left is Mr. St. Clair Hodge, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Hodge. Mr. Hodge is the Product Development Manager of the St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union. He is a visionary leader whose profound expertise in community development and technological integration directly aligns with today's agenda. His steadfast dedication to the development of youth and community makes him a vital voice on our panel. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming Mr. St. Clair Hodge. Next to Mr. Hodge, we have Mr. Tishan Fleming. Mr. Tishan Fleming is the representative of one of our budding cooperatives, the Gideon Force Cooperative Society. He represents the Rastafari Nation, and he is a long-standing member. Tishan's passion is agriculture, and he also has a passion to serve his people. He manages the farm at the Gideon Force, and he is instrumental in the farm tours. So let's put our hands together for Mr. Tishan Fleming. And then we have Ms. Sharilia Massicott. She is a chartered accountant and owner of the Pelican Accounting, Inc. She is a Kittitian by naturalization and has worked as a cooperative officer, supervisor, and auditor in Dominica for over 20 years. For more than 12 years, she was the chief financial officer for the SL Hosford Group of Companies and an internal auditor at the Caribbean Credit Card Company. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Ms. Sharilia Massicott. And then we have Mr. Sidney Newton. Mr. Sidney Newton is the retired general manager of the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union. He served in that capacity for 31 years. He was also the former president of the board of the NCCU. He was also the former president of the SKNNCL, that's the St. Kitts Nevis National Cooperative League, and he was also the former treasurer of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. His recent appointment is Commissioner of the Integrity Commission in Nevis. A wealth of information awaits you. Put your hands together for Sidney Newton. And I'm going to skip over to the gentleman here on the third from my left. And that is Mr. Clyde Thompson. He worked at the Department of Cooperatives from 1997 until 2022, and he was a cooperative officer from 1997 to 2010. During his time as cooperative officer, he completed a course in cooperative management in Malaysia. Mr. Thompson was the registrar of cooperatives from 2010 until 2022 when he retired. Put your hands together for Mr. Clyde Thompson. Mr. Ivor Keithley Phillip, next to Mr. Thompson. He is the general manager of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Cooperative League Limited, and he brings more than 25 years of senior management experience across both private and public sector organizations. He's a seasoned business professional. Mr. Philip has held leadership roles in several key institutions, and beyond his professional achievements, he is deeply committed to his faith and his community, and he serves as an associate pastor at the Antioch Baptist Church. His life and career are guided by God, by his dedication to God, family, and service. Put your hands together for Mr. Ivor Keithley Philip. And then we have, right at the end, we have Dr. June Gishad Pine. Dr. June Gishad Pine is a retired psychologist, and she has been back in our federation. When you hear her accent, you will know where she was. But she has been back in our federation since 2016. She is an executive member of the St. Kitts Beekeepers Cooperative Society Limited that was revived in 2022. She is passionate about beekeeping and very instrumental in promoting the activities of the beekeepers. She has worked in both government and private practice. She co-owned a tourism company in the UK to raise awareness of tourism to SKN and have brought hundreds of visitors to St. Kitts and Nevis since 2012. Dr. June Gishad Pine is passionate about innovation, and she is passionate about being a pioneer. Put your hands together for Miss June Gishad Pine. And of course, you see that I would have skipped out one person, and that person is Miss J.D. Keynes. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing Miss J.D. Keynes as our esteemed moderator. If anybody knows Miss Keynes, we know that she's bubbly and that she's lively. So we expect something good this evening. Miss Keynes is a communications specialist with extensive experience in the field. She is the marketing and education officer at the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union Limited, where she has worked for the last 8 years. And so put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for all our panelists and our moderator. And now, Ms. Keynes, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And of course, we want to recognize those of you who are physically here in this space. We thank you for sparing us some time to be part of this discussion this afternoon. And note that I said discussion because we don't just want to talk. We, if the opportunity allows, we'd like to hear from you. But we also want to recognize the persons who are tuned via the World Wide Web. Yes, we are live. And so to those who have joined us virtually, we say thank you so much for joining us. As Mrs. Allen mentioned, this afternoon's activity, COOP Talk, quite catchy name, right? Is part of the activities for Cooperative Week 2026. And she has already introduced the panelists, and based on the very brief profiles that have been read, I know that we have a wealth of knowledge on this stage this afternoon. Before we get into the actual meat of the discussion, though, I would like us to turn our attention to the screen as we'll have a brief video presentation by Mr. Melvin Edwards, who was supposed to be here but was unavoidably absent. And many of you will know him as a cooperative guru, really. He helped to shape the cooperative movement, not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but in the Caribbean. And so we are quite proud of his accomplishments. He has served as the president of the World Council of Credit Unions, and he has been really instrumental in drafting the Cooperative Societies Act. And so we are so happy that he still holds the cooperative movement very near and dear to his heart. So let us now turn our attention to the screen to hear from Mr. Melvin Edwards.
First of all, I want to greet the Department of Cooperatives and the various persons who are members and who are leaders of cooperative businesses in the Federation on the occasion of World Cooperatives Day. which is being observed this year by the International Cooperative Alliance on July 4th. You are having a special event on July 1, which is good, under the theme Cooperatives for a Peaceful World. Cooperatives have been registered and operating in St. Kitts and Nevis for more than 60 years. The issue, however, is the extent to which we are continuing to be relevant to the changes in the society, the changes in the economy. As everyone knows, the most successful cooperatives in the Federation are the financial ones that are called credit unions. They're basically financial cooperatives. So something like over 30,000 citizens of this country are members and therefore owners of financial cooperatives called credit unions. The other types of cooperatives are heavily in the areas of fisheries, and agriculture, farming, and other related businesses. The farming and fishing, the productive type corps, do have a critical role to play in that they're enabling their members to become economically better off in the business they are engaged in, so that the group can achieve things that the individuals cannot by themselves. So these are really enterprises that are based on collective ownership. At the same time, they are led and governed democratically through boards of directors, committees, as well as the owners who are the ordinary members. The extent to which we are making these entities successful depend heavily upon the leadership, but also upon government policy to facilitate the growth. I would want to say that many of the fisheries and farming agricultural cooperatives are struggling and have been struggling for quite a while. In some cases, they probably need to be phased into individual enterprises because they're not sustainable. So the whole question of maybe deregistering or writing them off would be a solution, in that many of the leaders are really aged and are no longer as active as they should. Innovation, to me, is one of the challenges in terms of why aren't we exploring other sectors? Certainly, there are financial cooperatives in the schools. They're called the junior co-ops or the school savings co-ops. These are basically feeding grounds for the credit unions because they can't borrow. They can only save and withdraw. The key point, therefore, is, so what are we going to do with the cooperative ethos, the cooperative structure, which in other countries creates significant wealth? There are cooperatives involved in health services, in any area of the economy. They're involved in IT, they're involved in tourism-related services, where people see there are advantages of doing it together. In other countries, the preschools, there are clusters of preschools that operate as a cooperative, so that they can purchase the inputs collectively to reduce the cost if they were purchasing them individually. So, as you know, in the other types, a lot of it has to do with the inputs and the access to grants to some extent and to government support. So I'm just saying that we have to really look at how the economy has shifted, look at the opportunities in the whole economic construct at the community level and the national level, and see where we could come up with new types of cooperatives that make sense, that make economic sense, that the individual members can achieve better livelihoods and growth, business growth, that they can't achieve if they were to struggle economically as individual entrepreneurs. The resources to be provided by the government, this has to go back to policy, in that the policy statement in respect of strengthening, modernizing the cooperatives has to be very clear and explicit. It cannot be a question of those who are falling out of the cracks in terms of employment. You form a cooperative to create jobs. It doesn't work that way, because these are people who are, in a sense, struggling to survive. So it's a question of more business people, more persons who want to really grow their own enterprises, clustering together so that they can make economies of scale, at the same time create jobs and incomes that could sustain for at least, a generation or two. There must be a time when you could phase out of the existing entity into something else or add others. In St. Vincent, for instance, there's a gas station, a Rubis gas station that is a cooperative. In St. Kitts and Nevis, many of the members of credit unions, owns vehicles. So I'm just saying there are all kinds of opportunities in the market that we haven't looked at that can be cooperative, in that the size of ownership, the ability to grow and to purchase the resources, including management resources, the ability to gain scale by doing it together as against individually, especially on the consumer side, because St. Kitts and Nevis has a strong consumer accent, if I may say, or appetite. And therefore, there are things that services and goods that we purchase individually, that if we were to collaborate or cooperate, they could become less expensive. So I just want to make the point that the differential benefits are still available, in that other countries are doing so, but we have to move on from the traditional forms of cooperatives and look at other avenues that could be as attractive, as sexy as other types of business that can follow the path, so to speak, that the credit unions have made. And a lot of it has to do with the imagination, the innovation, and the management capacity that could be, developed over that time. The other point that needs to be made is, in addition to the policy, is the legislation. The legislation for the cooperative sector is now almost 15 years old. It was enacted, if I recall, somewhere around 2010, 2011. It is important that the new legislation continues to be cooperative legislation, all embracing all the different types, so that the support by the more successful credit unions for the less successful and growing other cooperatives can be facilitated through enabling legislation. I'm really hopeful that the effort to put the draft revised legislation, which exists, and the regulations, to put them on the front burner for enactment by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, by Parliament, is important. We've just seen in Barbados new legislation come through where the deposits held by people in credit unions in Barbados are now insured. In other words, if anything goes wrong, the depositor can get back, whether it's 25 cents or 30, 40, as the fund grows, for every dollar that could be in jeopardy. This is going to be very important, in that not only the credit unions can benefit, but the other types of cooperatives, their funds can be placed into that facility so that the cooperative sector works together. So the point I'm making is that the legislation, which is so important, which sets the framework within which the department and the FSRC can regulate and grow the sector, is extremely important to have that in place as the enabling framework. Wish you well, and certainly the theme is adequate, in that the country, the region, the world will be better off, will be more peaceful once people are meaningfully employed and engaged in a business that is different to government business, that is different to private ownership. This is the third alternative for the economy, the cooperative sector, which is alive and well across this region and can be, again, in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you very much.
Okay, we thank Mr. Melvin Edwards in his absence for having an input in today's COOP Talk. And I think he made some very salient points, and I'll elaborate on a few, or I'll mention a few. But before I do so, allow me to recognize the presence of our permanent secretary in the Ministry of Small Business, Entrepreneurship, Cooperatives, et al., Ms. Delreen Taylor. She has joined us at the front. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your presence here this afternoon. Now, Mr. Melvin Edwards, who I mentioned earlier, is really a cooperative guru and who has done a lot of work in terms of getting the cooperative movement to where it is today. Mentioned in his brief presentation a number of things. He highlighted that the productive co-ops have a critical role to play, enabling members to be more economically stable so that the group can achieve what the individuals cannot. And I love that, because that is one of the things that we really want to push. We want to ensure that all of our cooperatives are sustainable, and we want to ensure, as Mr. Edwards indicated, that we grow the cooperative movement. He also mentioned some suggestions on how we can deal with the fact that some of the cooperatives are indeed struggling. You know, we have the agricultural cooperatives, who he said have been really struggling for some time. He mentioned the word innovation, the need for innovation, noting that it is a challenge, and really asked us the question, why aren't we exploring other sectors to help build the cooperative movement? We need to come up with new types of cooperatives that make sense. Not just come up with them, but make sure that they make sense. And for me, the word that he did not mention, but mentioned, was pivot. That came out. That theme of pivoting came out. And finally, I note that he referenced that the legislation is dated, and I think many of us feel that way. We know that. And really talked about the need to have the draft legislation which exists be put before Parliament. So a number of things for us to chew on and digest. And what we'll do this afternoon is give each presenter here at the head table a few minutes to make a presentation, and we'll have questions based on each presentation. And we allow other panelists to chime in if they have a comment on a particular presentation. It's important for us to keep the presentation succinct. And so I am advised that you were given just about 7 minutes to make your presentations individually. And I will be giving you a nice little reminder, friendly and polite reminder, when you're nearing the expiration of your time, so that we can keep the discussions tight. For the benefit of those who are tuned in online, maybe you just stumbled across this on YouTube. You saw it on my status, so you're not quite sure what's going on, like my daughter who just told me, Mommy, you're watching. Allow us to share just a few things so that we can put this into perspective. So a cooperative is really a business or organization that is owned and run by its members. So the idea is, instead of maximizing the profit for outside shareholders, the co-ops focus on giving members equal voting power and sharing financial benefits. So that's the essence of cooperatives. The members could be workers, customers, local residents, etc. So it varies from cooperative to cooperative. Now, the main types of cooperative for this discussion, we have the worker cooperatives, where they are owned and managed by the employees themselves. Examples would be like a worker-owned bakery or a tech firm. Then we have the consumer cooperatives that I'm a part of. Those are owned by the customers, or we call them members, who buy goods or services. Examples maybe credit unions and even local food markets. Then we have the producer cooperatives formed by independent producers like the farmers or crafts people, artisans, vendors, and they pool resources, share equipment, or market goods together. So, in a nutshell, that's what we are focusing on today. We'll begin with Mr. Keithley Phillip in terms of our presentations. Ivor Keithley Phillip, I'm sorry. And he's from the St. Kitts and Nevis National Cooperative League. And he will be speaking today about the economic impact and national development. Mr. Phillip, I want you to talk about how cooperatives contribute to our GDP, our gross domestic product, job creation, financial inclusion, community wealth building. It sounds like a lot, and I only give you 7 minutes, but you'll make it work. You know, and especially focus on small island economies. That's because that's who we are. I want you to be as simple as possible. Yes, be as simple as possible so that we can all understand and appreciate where we are going with this. So, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mr. Ivor Phillip.
Good afternoon to everyone. Certainly do appreciate your presence this afternoon, and just that as we deliberate today on COOP Talk, that we would leave here more enthused to go about our co-op business. Listening to Melvin earlier and JD just now, they outlined for you really the definition of what really a cooperative is. So I don't have to go through that. Where I would begin my discussion then is an indication of how relevant is this cooperative movement to the Federation. The question is the relevance of cooperatives in national building of St. Kitts and Nevis. The relevance of cooperatives in nation building of St. Kitts and Nevis. And having had a definition of what a cooperative was, and having looked at the different types of cooperatives, I asked the question, how then is this movement, this cooperative movement, relevant to the Federation? We first have to understand that St. Kitts and Nevis has a number of developmental challenges. By developmental challenges, I mean that we have a small size. And because of our small size, we have a small population and limited opportunities for economic diversification. Secondly, we are vulnerable in that, based on where we are on the map, we are vulnerable to external shocks and the associated risks. We have a high vulnerability to natural disasters and climate change. And I'm sure all farmers here with us today can attest to the fact that the natural disasters is one, apart from the monkeys, is one of the most critical aspects that they are dealing with. One again of the developmental challenges of St. Kitts and Nevis is that there is the need for more inclusive growth models. And those models are what help to keep the income generated locally to be kept to remain in the country. We are aware of the growth models that we go to a particular organization, a particular business place, and we spend our money there, and then the money is expatriated. We now have to think and to consider growth models, as Melvin just now said, a new way of doing it. And JD said, pivoting from what we are accustomed to find new ways to ensure that the money stays within our countries. We are far from the major markets. There's a high dependence on imports and international trade. We knew what happened when COVID hit us, and the containers were not coming in. All right, so there's a high dependence on the imports. We have a fragile environment and a fragile ecosystem. If the rain, the gut runs too much, then it affects us. So then, given these limitations that I just now mentioned and within the time frame that I have to speak, it is within these limitations that the cooperative movement was birthed. I'm going to touch that point again a little bit, but I want to mention what I call 4 major imperatives or 4 contributors, because I want to ensure that I stay on topic and I speak to specifically the economic impact at national development. So then, one of the imperative I would list is that of the contribution to our GDP, gross domestic product. So, long word short, the gross domestic product is essentially the amount of goods and services produced in a country in a given year, or the output in a country in a given year. So all your goods that you make and all your services, and that is on the output side of your balance sheet. Then there's a income side of the balance sheet, which is not important for us today. So on the output side is the products and services that St. Kitts and Nevis produce and the cost of those. So then, we must understand that as cooperative, we do contribute to GDP. Let me first start and then just look quickly at the credit union. The credit union has about 41,491 members. 41,491 members as of the end of December last year. When we compare that to the population of St. Kitts and Nevis, we have what we call a penetration rate of 75%. However, Melvin would tell you that that a number of us are members of more than one credit union. So effectively then, he said 30,000. So I will say about 31,000. So if we now say that the amount of members of our credit unions are 31,000, then that gives us a market penetration rate of 56%. By market penetration rate, I mean the amount of persons within our organizations, the credit unions, relative to the population of the country. 56%. Now, when we go to the world credit unions, on a whole, the penetration rate across the world for credit unions is 12 to 15%. That suggests to us then that in St. Kitts and Nevis, we are some 5 times higher. Our penetration rate is some 5 times higher than what it is for the world credit unions. That's number one. Number two, as of March 2026, the combined deposits and savings within the credit union movement was $589 million. I want to let it sink in for a minute, because this is money that is owned by us. Owned by us. And by us, I mean cooperatives, because I know some of the non-financial cooperatives have their monies at the credit union. All right? So these are $589 million. And these are the what? These are reinvested locally. Because the credit unions, as their major business, they give loans, correct? And so the loans that they have given up to as of March 26 is $500 million. See how Philip, that's a good amount. Me ain't seeing it. You are seeing it in your mortgages and the financing of your homes. $200 million. You're seeing it in micro businesses, agriculture, fisheries, and some of the productive type of businesses, $3 million. You're seeing it in education, $10 million. You're seeing it in what we call distributive trade, that is wholesale and retail, $10 million. So the total loans again is $500 million. This, I repeat, is monies that are owned by the members of the credit union. So as it relates to the contribution of the credit union to GDP, we recognize that we as members of the members of credit unions are full-fledged contributors, economic contributors to St. Kitts and Nevis. I would not go any further in making that point in the interest of time. Then we look at the producer and other cooperative. One of the things that is really sorely missing from this grouping is the data. I've been trying to get data, I can't get the data. And so we go to a credit union and say, hey, I want a small loan. And they say, well, give me your information, your sales and your revenue and your expenses for 2 years. And say, man, that I know I had it on a piece of paper put down someplace. What is critical is the data. Data drives business. Data drives business. All right, so when I looked around, I could not find it. However, I wish to make the point, and I congratulate Gideon Force and the beekeepers, because I understand that these are two. One is a resurgent, and one is one of our more positive example, because it is not only concentrated on its core business, which is farming. Yeah? It has done what? What's the word, JD? Pivot. And has gone into another type of business area. I told you to talk about this thing, and say this 5 minutes is not gonna work, you know. All right. So the first imperative is the contribution to GDP. The second one is job creation. We must understand that cooperatives are not only employment generators. We are not only employment generators. Cooperatives don't just hire people. What we do is that we stimulate spending. We stimulate spending. Can I make the point again? We stimulate spending. We support local businesses. We expand production. And we circulate the income within the economy. Because I get to work. I go down the road and spend the money. That person go down the road and spend the money. That person, we call it then in economics, the multiplier effect. So it is the credit union. I submit to that, because when we put our monies in the credit union, it is the cooperative, sorry. Because when we put all our monies within the credit unions, the monies stay here. And so because the money is here, it is not repatriated. Because the money is here, it helps in the local development of our country. 2 more points I want to make and then close off and done. Well, not done, but close off for now. Financial inclusion. I want to make the point that financial inclusion is where the cooperative shine. More so where the credit union shine. In last year, in 2025, Nevis-Jul, he declared and observed Aspire, which was our financial literacy day in schools on the 14th of May last year. I wish to suggest then that financial inclusion, which embodies financial literacy for St. Kitts and Nevis, is a national development priority. You ask me, how does the cooperatives contribute to economic impact and national development? And I suggest to us that by financial inclusion, we are contributing to national development. One more point. Community wealth building. We must understand that the cooperatives was formed back in Europe in the 1840s. And the cooperative movement was birthed as a response to humanitarian care for the working class. And this arose at the end of the Industrial Revolution, 1760 to 1840. And this was done in order to improve the lives of the poor because of the harsh economic realities. One of those economic realities was that the poor could not get any money to borrow. And so two of the first types of cooperatives were the artisan, the artists, and the farmers. Farmers who could not get any money to buy tools, to buy product, to input for their farms. They banded together. And long before the credit union came along, we had the artisans and we had the farmers leading that drive in the cooperatives. Thank you.
We thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Philip. And you definitely covered the theme. You looked at the economic impact and national development, focusing heavily on how cooperatives contribute to our gross domestic product, job creation, financial inclusion, and community wealth building, rather. With such a high penetration in the credit union movement in particular, because you mentioned if we were to use this 75% penetration rate with if we were to look at the 41,000 thereabout members at the end of December, you recognize that that's a 75% penetration rate. And if you were to consider that it's even 56% based on members of a single credit union, it's still significantly higher than in other countries, correct? Am I quoting you correctly? So why then are your credit unions always asking for new members? I'm the marketing officer, so I want to know why we still feel like we need this.
Because that is our ethos.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we're about. What are we about, Tariq? People. People helping people.
Wonderful, and I'm glad you mentioned.
We want as much as possible to bring persons on the ship so that they too can be helped.
Wonderful. I'm glad that you mentioned that point, because then it goes back to your comment about the producer cooperatives and the fact that many of them tend to be missing data. And we all know, those of us in finance, we know that, the data drives the business. Explain quickly how the credit unions can help its fellow cooperatives in this regard.
Not sure if I am the one that should be answering this. There's many leaders of credit unions here.
Okay, I have a former one here.
That they might be in a better position. I have my thoughts.
Okay, give me a thought.
Well, no, Melvin really put it in its context. My difficulty, and she said, give her a thought, so I'm giving her my thought. Not my opinion, my thought. And my thought is driven by data. What I find is that there is a non-cooperativism within some of the producer cooperatives. And by that, I mean that there is a tendency sometimes to attempt to go it alone. The whole nature of the cooperatives is that you band together. For example, the fishermen. And I'm a member of the Newtown Fisheries Corporate. And so the fish come in and everybody sell their own fish. Get their own money, put their own money in their own pocket. No, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to operate as an individual business person, come out of the cooperatives. Because I do believe that there is there's strength in numbers. Look at it on the other hand. If persons or fisher persons are to come in and to put their fish, all right, I come in with £100. I sell it to my cooperative. And then at the end of the day, my cooperative pay me back. My cooperative invests. We have a surplus. That is the whole ethos of cooperatism. You may not go home with the $150. You may go home with 125. But understand that the other 25 is working for you. How is it working for you? You are now able to buy in bulk wire for your fish pot. You're able to buy in bulk and go up by TDC and say, 5 of us can come and buy engines. What is the discount? As opposed to one of us going and buying an engine. I'm not going to say anything else. In the interest of time, sorry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And I want to also challenge our credit unions in particular, if you are not already doing it, our financial counseling, our financial advice to our members should be free. So if we're not already doing that, we should be really pushing free counseling, free financial counseling to our members, particularly the member cooperatives, so that we can help to elevate their standard. We move now to Mr. Sidney Newton, Mr. G. Sidney Newton, who will speak on strengthening financial resilience and member empowerment. Mr. Newton, you know that you're the former general manager of the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union. If this was about a year ago, I might be a little bit nervous to ask you some questions. But since you're no longer my boss, Mr. Newton, if there are any tough questions, you will get them. All right, so I wanted to speak about the role of credit unions and other cooperatives in promoting things like savings, responsible lending, financial literacy, and of course, economic stability for households. All right? All right, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ms. Keynes, good afternoon, good evening, fellow cooperators. Fellow panelists, good evening. I'm honored to be here this afternoon to participate in this panel discussion and to attempt to address the topic which has been proposed to me, and to hope that the thoughts I will share could bring further discussions after I'm done. As Mr. Philip said, Mr. Edwards put into context a few things, Ms. Keynes herself, the definition of a cooperative, and Mr. Philip did venture quite a bit into the financial cooperative or the credit unions area. So they have already helped me with my presentation. I'm just going to add a little bit to what they have said and to bring it into full context. All of us know about credit unions, because I'm sure everybody here is a member of a credit union. So I don't think I can say too much more about it and what it is. But we all know, by definition, it is really a not-for-profit, member-owned financial cooperative, which offer traditional banking services, such as investments, checking, savings, and loans. And primarily, instead of serving outside investors, its profits are returned to the members through lower interest rates on loans, higher returns on savings, and reduced fees. The topic Strengthen Financial Resilience and Member Empowerment acknowledges that credit unions actually participates in these activities. Financial resilience is the ability to withstand, adapt to, and recover from unexpected economic shocks or unplanned events. And credit unions has proven to be such organizations. The pandemic, the recent pandemic is evidence of that. And credit unions having passed through many natural disasters, as Mr. Philip mentioned, hurricanes and recoveries and so on, it proved that the credit union in particular is a very resilient organization. We understand the other cooperatives are suffering, they are lagging behind, but I'll come to that a little later. So, how do the credit unions work? Mentioned again, membership, member ownership, already mentioned. Members buy shares and they become owners. Democratic control, where members elect a board of directors through the voting process, and the rule is the one man or one member, one vote. And then there is the common bond, something which is disappearing, and rightfully so, because the bonds have been expanded or opened to allow for persons to become members of more than one credit union. And that is why we have the discrepancy between 41,000 and 31,000, because some members are members of more than one credit union and they are counted twice. So that explains. But it is good in the sense that it is the counter to having persons having accounts in more than one banks. So you could go to different banks and have an account. You could have a credit union accounts in credit unions as well. And so the credit union is a resilient organization. Its emergence, Mr. Philip touched on it already, is way back in the 1850s. In the 1850s. But prior to that, there were days when access to the formal banking system was restrictive and selective. And credit unions actually came into the financial space to help members or persons who were not accepted in the formal banking system develop financial expertise and thrift and prudence, where the members were encouraged to save regularly, borrow wisely, repay promptly, and create wealth from their investments. So these principles have become cornerstone of financial resilience and member empowerment. And the first credit union was called a cooperative credit society. And most persons at the time referred to it as the People's Bank. In our area, we used to call it the Poor Man's Bank. We can't say that anymore. But we understand the principle. It was to address the persons who are excluded from the formal banking system. At present, the credit unions are leveraging their unique member-centric model to strengthen financial resilience and empower their members through various strategies to deliver the core function. And remember, a credit union in particular, financial cooperative, is really a savings and loans institution. Two main parts, savings and loans. And so I've been asked to address the savings, promoting savings, responsible lending, financial literacy, and economic stability. And so the pooling of resources by our members create the resources to make loans to members. And that is critical, because the larger the pool, the more members you can reach and the larger the loans can be. And so, savings promotion, what can we say about that? There are a lot of products, savings products out there. They are called by different names, but they are really the same thing. A saving is a saving, right? And some credit unions have gone beyond into investment products, which give long-term guarantees and benefits and higher interest rates and so on. But the important thing here is that the credit union member is encouraged to save and to create a pool from which other members can borrow. Now, if one has a large pool of savings and nobody is borrowing, it does not benefit the credit union nor the general membership, because it is the money that is loaned that generates income to pay dividends, to pay interest, and to build the equity in the credit union to grow the business so that it can carry out education and other services. And so lending is critical. And I must acknowledge the CEO of First Federal in the House, my senior in business, one from whom I learned much, although I was 31 years in the business, with her expertise. Because I will say responsible lending epitomizes the credit union's practice in the 4 C's. Very simple 4 C's, right? We all know them: character, capacity, capital, and collateral. And no matter how technical lending gets, it comes right back down to these 4 basic tenets. All right? Character, we must know our members, and we must know who pay their debts and who are defaulters, how they manage their financial obligations. And we must know something about their payment history, their responsibility, and soon and very soon, with the launch of the credit bureau, if that is not known, it will become known, because all of the information for lending will be entered into the system, and persons' credit history become known to the lenders. Their scores will reflect their character, and that is a very important thing that must be considered. So character cannot be hidden. We can't run or hide. The capacity of the member is determined by their ability to service their debt. And again, in assessing loans, that's what the credit unions, the loans officers, the others do. Relation to capital, the member's overall financial safety net is important. Must know what they have, their assets, their savings, their investments, their net worth. And when they come to borrow, we must know if they have any skin in the game, if they have anything to lose, whether they have anything to fall back on, backup funds and so on. Because there are some persons who come to borrow, go to the credit unions to borrow, and they come with nothing. That's fine. We say we're going to give you 100% financing, but we have to consider the risk involved, and their capital is what is up for consideration here. And then the easiest one is the collateral. If you have something to put up, you're in a better position than the rest, whether it is land, property, house, or whatever the case is. And these things are important, an important consideration for building resilience. If the credit unions lend as they should, considering the 4 C's of credit, I think that they would be in a very good stead. But considering that credit unions are really people-centric, member-centric, sometimes we have to deviate from the straight, and narrow. Here is where we put ourselves at risk, and the possibility of delinquency will arise. But it is said that in every loan, there's a potential 15 to 20% which will go delinquent. Hopefully not deliberately, but because of circumstances beyond the control of the member or environmental matters. So we have the savings promotion, the responsible lending, financial literacy. Now, this is continuous education, training, and information for members, which is part of the core principles of credit unions. And all of the credit unions participate in this, whether it is training for the member himself or herself or the volunteers. Financial literacy and continuous education is part of the credit union's structure. Now, there are 4 things that we must consider, and I'm sure that some of the credit unions are already doing these: financial education, offering workshops and webinars, and so on. As somebody mentioned, counseling, personal guidance. There is opportunity for one-on-one consultation with credit union members, financial coaches, personal representative who tailor tailor solutions for the members to help them tackle their debt and their savings issues. And then I think digital matters are on the program, right? Good. So there is an opportunity for digital tools and resources to become part of the financial literacy program, where we provide budgeting apps and financial calculators and educational platforms and so on that offer 24/7 information and support. And then with all of that, it will be no good if we do not go to the community to engage persons where they are at. It's not always the most comfortable space to bring the members into the credit unions. So sometimes the credit unions will have to go to the members where they are in the community. And lastly, the issue of social economic stability. Credit unions drive household economic stability by reinvesting its profit in loans with lower interest rates, higher savings, higher yielding savings accounts, and accessible community lending. It is said that serving a higher percentage of working class families, they provide affordable alternative to predatory lenders, fostering long-term financial resilience and keeping local capital circulating in the community. The first credit unions were formed because of loan sharks in Germany, people who were taking advantage of the farmers, as Mr. Philip mentioned, and those persons who needed finance. And so finally, I wrap up by saying that financial economic stability really encompasses those things that were mentioned before: responsible lending, financial education, lower fees, better rates, alternative products, so that if all of these are evident and present in the members' experience, they will become financially and economically stable. And they support their credit union. Their credit unions too will become and maintain and strengthen their own resilience. And with the member becoming more educated, more enlightened, more financially literate, I think that the credit unions and other cooperatives, the producer cooperatives, would be in good stead, and the nation itself will benefit largely from the cooperative movement, which is really the members, the masses, pooling their resources to build financial wealth. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Newton. And by way of information, if you online want to be part of the discussion, or even if you're in the room and you want to have an input, but you don't want to, you're not able to stand and speak because, the interest of time, you can send a text to 669-3358, 669-3358, and I will get that message and I will share it with the panelists here. All right, so Mr. Newton spoke on the topic strengthening financial resilience and member empowerment, focusing specifically on the role of credit unions and other cooperatives in promoting savings, responsible lending, financial literacy, and economic stability for households. So we're going to move along because we've been hearing a lot about the credit unions generally. So I am going to go over to my far left to Mr. St. Clair Hodge, who is going to give us a different perspective: innovation, technology, and youth engagement. And I think these are important considering Mr. Edwards' opening remarks. So, Mr. Hodge, tell us, how can cooperatives remain relevant through digital transformation, new service models, youth participation, and modern cooperative education?
All right, good evening to everyone online and in person, and thanks, JD. Let me first start by recognizing the fact that cooperatives are indeed very much relevant now, because you are seeing the exit of major commercial banks out of the region. So that now creates a space for who? For us. And in order for us to fill that gap, you have to stay current and relevant. And as mentioned, a lot of the innovation that the commercial banks have, we need to adopt. Now, in doing so, our regulatory framework, which was mentioned earlier, will need work. And that's something that I know Mr. Philip is championing. So on the heels of that, innovation is also expensive. But there are ways we can do this. So when you talk about digital transformation across various sectors, financial co-ops are, I think, leading the way. You know, your ATM machines, your digital branch, your ATM cards, your credit cards. And these are things on your online app. These are things that are now current among most of the credit unions. And it's relevant to not just youth, but across the board, because you now have everyone transferring monies using their apps, going to the ATMs, withdrawing their funds, and using the cards to swipe and purchase items. Agricultural co-ops as well. When you think of agriculture and fisher, sometimes technology don't come top of mind, but technology is top of mind in these sectors. The engines, the boat engines on the boats nowadays, they're more sophisticated than cars. And it's necessary because the boat engines are now more efficient. So they're able to go longer, they're able to go farther, they're able to produce more, reap more, and make more money, even though they have, this one engine on the back of their boat compared to the older model engines. So technology and transformation is critical. The farmers, the producer co-ops, data. And we have tools, there are applications that would help our farmers determine what their wastage would be in their farms, and multiple other metrics that they use to measure on their farms and in their farming products. So digital transformation is critical. I'm not going to elaborate too much, but we could come back to those. But I want to touch on service models, new service models. Now, as I said before, financial co-ops have already expanded outside of the traditional saving and loans. We are now moving into investments. We are now moving into digital branches. So you can now execute your business off-site. You have a standalone ATM, and kudos to First Federal. You're the first credit union to go off-site, and you're now down in Sandy Point. And these are the things that the financial co-ops are doing so that they could reach members in different places. Fisheries co-ops, collective bargaining through aggregate catch volumes. Now, one thing that I must say, in order for any of this to work, the word cooperation must be front and center. And I think we fall short in many different aspects because we don't cooperate among each other. And when you talk about new service models, imagine farmers depositing all of their produce in one place that can be distributed, and the cost can be shared among all of the co-ops. So one co-op don't have to bear all the burden, all the costs of a housing storage or a freezer for anything. You can come together and disseminate that cost among all of the cooperatives, make life cheaper for everybody. Therefore, when you start to sell, you make more profit among each other. And there is a need for us to cooperate. If you cooperate, shared services, sorry, throat dry. Shared services is critical. And I know our league is actually looking at that for the financial co-ops. Because if we have shared services, then we can deliver a lot of our products and service to our members at a cheaper rate. Now, we talk about youth. I want to definitely highlight some of our youth in the building. When you look around, majority of the persons here are silver foxes. Don't mind me. But you have Tariq, and I can call him down, Tariq, and you had Shajune here just recently. Tariq and Shajune won scholarships, youth scholarships to CCCU. Tariq also won the Wake Up Scholarship, so he's off to Australia. Now, yes, give him a round of applause. The question lies is, how do we make the cooperatives or the co-op attractive to young people? And that is the main thing, because you look around here, majority are the more seasoned individuals. But we need to now change and elevate the brand of the cooperatives. It needs to change to appeal to a younger segment. And not just only to the younger segment, but to all segments across. But if you're going to be looking at sustainable growth, you need to appeal to a younger segment. And then there's change. Because guess what? The technologies, the customs that Mr. Newton was accustomed to, 20 years, 30 years past, those customs have changed. So it looks different 30 years later. And then what I am accustomed to 30 years, 40 years down the road, it will look different as well. So there's a constant evolution in the co-op, and we need to keep our fingers on the pulse, because we need to understand that there is an image that people consume. And if they don't like what they see, if they don't like what they associated with, then, the chair is going to be empty and everything going to be kind of frazzled. So you look around, when you think of Coca-Cola, top of mind, you think of brands that are out there standing out, Nike, Coca-Cola, Adidas. It is possible to develop our cooperative brand. And if that happens, then you will see the synergy start to work. You'll see the support start to work. You might not need to come to the financials for more money, but you see the buy-in from not just the financials and the other co-ops, but from the outside community. More people would be attracted to the co-ops. So lastly, when you talk about modernizing different aspects of the cooperatives, education, financial literacy. And financial literacy, I'm going to put a plug right here. Please go to YouTube and follow St. Kitts Credit Union. We have Money Melee on YouTube. What we did, Money Melee is a financial literacy show. And it's produced in-house by the St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union, and it gives you tips. We already have over 12 episodes. It gives you tips on financial business, saving, budgeting, and we go off on different topics. We did a topic on how lupus impacts your finances. Things like diseases, non-communicable diseases can affect your pocket. So we want to change the narrative of how we view financial literacy, because when you look at it and you ask questions, it turns to financial literacy is boring. But what can we do to make it interesting? So use the technology to bring it to them. You have to meet the youth where they are. Meet the youth where they are, and that's where you're going to find transformation. So to wrap up, it's about ensuring that you understand where you want to go, ensuring that the brand can be developed to be attractive, and you got to meet people where they are. That's my contribution.
We thank Mr. Hodge for his presentation on innovation, technology, and youth engagement. And as he was recognizing the younger people in the room, I say younger because I am young, people in the room, I want to recognize these two beautiful young ladies here, and I applaud the family for ensuring that the knowledge is passed down. These are the types of things that we want to see. So kudos to you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, in Mr. Hodges' presentation, again, the theme of pivoting came up. And you would recognize that there are some similarities in terms of the key terms and phrases. It's saying really and truly that we need to change with the times. We don't necessarily have to change the ethos of cooperatives because that's who we are. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us special. However, we have to adjust or adapt to the changing times. Am I correct? Is that what we are saying? So that is what I've been hearing from Mr. Philip. I heard from Mr. Hodge, and we are going to continue because now I want to hear this particular presentation. Not that I didn't want to hear the others, but because, you see, it says, expanding cooperative models beyond finance, the Dominica model, and how it can be utilized in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, because this has a slightly different perspective, I thought, this sounds interesting. What is there for us to learn? And so we are going to turn it over now to Miss Sherilla Massicott, who is going to present on this topic, and I'll repeat it, expanding cooperative models beyond finance, the Dominica model, and how it can be utilized in St. Kitts and Nevis. A round of applause for her, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name is Sherilla Massicott. I'm originally from Dominica, as you could hear my accent. So we normally speak very fast, but I will try to go as slow as I can. I've been living here for the past 26 years. My accent don't say that, but I've been here for the past 26 years. I've been living in St. Kitts. And I also have the experience of both sides. I was the president of the St. Kitts Credit Union for 6 years. I was also involved in the Credit Union League for I think about a little over 6 years, also as the treasurer of the St. Kitts National League. And I'm still involved currently with the Dominica League. I do consultancy work for the Dominica League currently. So I work with both sectors, both in Dominica and St. Kitts. The difference really is in Dominica, the model is very different. The model in Dominica is concentrated in the communities. You have community credit unions, whereas here the credit unions are concentrated in the town, in Basseterre. So you would have things like the Salisbury Credit Union, which is concentrated in that community. We have the Marigot Credit Union, concentrated in the community of Marigot. And the island is much bigger. You're talking about 2-3 hours to drive to certain places. Like for me to go to the airport from my home in Dominica is 2 hours. So, it's a different demography and a different physical space. So as a result of the community-based credit unions or community-based organizations, you have a local flair, a belonging, that is my thing. And so as a result, there is a greater level of togetherness. And that level of togetherness creates the cooperative effect. I'm making sense. So because it's a community thing, you have a greater togetherness, everybody know each other. So it's easier to cooperate like that, although it can be a challenge because I don't want my neighbor to look better than me. So it creates its own challenges. However, it creates the cooperative effect where we are working together because we know each other. And when we look out for each other no matter what. And even the opening hours and everything was very different. The Salisbury Credit Union where I grew up, we are involved in credit union since you're small. So from the time you're born, you're a credit union member, basically. So when my children were born, although they were here, they had a credit union account. So since, and then by the time you are in high school, you're on a credit committee somewhere. You're on a supervisor. When I was in high school, I was already on some committee, even if it's to raise funds. So you have this community togetherness, cooperatives, which naturally flows through the process. So it's a bit different. And also we have the different industries. So not just credit unions, which are very strong. And I think the credit union movement started in 1955 from a Catholic nun from Belgium since 1955. And she started in town. And it came about, like Mr. Newton said, as a result of persons from underprivileged in the society would not, at that time, you had these white people running things. And they would not normally have access to funds. As a result, they came together and pooled their resources together. And then they lent each other money. It wasn't called credit union. I think we call it, it is still called locally a susu kind of thing. If you know what susu is, that is how it started, like a susu. And then it got its legal connotation. But even growing up, everybody, like on a Saturday, you come from the markets, you go to the credit union to drop your money. That's the understanding. So you don't keep money at home. Saturday afternoon, credit union open Saturday afternoon. That kind of thing to facilitate money deposits. So I could, even myself, my parents would send somebody like me or my sisters on a Saturday, they come from the market, how many 25 cents to make $1? So we learned ourselves. At the time, you don't think about it, but when after you grow up, you realize they teach you accounting, you know. So she would tell us, for 25 cents, make $1. So, you know, all these 25 cents, these are the dollars from the market. So we go to the credit union and they can't fool you. So I already know all these 25 cents, how much money has to go on the book. And if I can read it, my bigger sister will read and make sure the gentleman puts, if it's $2,000 on that book. But he must not see the balance. So it and the whole environment was created. And the Saturday afternoon, credit union will be open to facilitate the deposit of cash and close by about 7 in the night, something like that. So it was a community thing, and not just the credit unions. You have the fishers, you have the farmers. My father was a member of a farmers cooperative also, so we grew up in the system. And then you have volunteerism. The person who kept the books was not paid. It's only after, years later, after I was a grown person, start asking for money. But there was no payment. It was voluntary. And then you volunteer to clean the place. And after a while, an office opened. I remember when we used to go to the school and drop money for my parents. After a while, you see an office open down the road. And then things evolve and more money come in, then you can see the increase in the asset base. And more people start coming, then you have their diversification. And just before I left Dominica, there was a thrust to create greater growth. All the small credit unions, after the FSRC came in, the regulations start coming in, legislation start coming in. Then to keep up with all this legislation, they were grouped now with only the small credit unions came together to form bigger entities. And then you have more money and the demand for cash became the greater. Now you have security. I remember when my parents bought an estate, it was on your signature. In those days, your signature was king. And you could acquire assets at that time without having to have an asset beforehand. Now, before you go to a loan, you have to give an asset to get the loan. In those days, you got the loan and then acquire the asset. So it encouraged persons to be part of it because it's like, I do not have they give you a loan based on your character a lot. And then you could acquire the asset afterwards. So it was a different, completely different environment. And also moving from the credit unions, we have the other one. The penetration for the credit unions now is 219%, something like that. It is 200% because, like we said, persons are members of different credit unions. But almost every person in Dominica you speak to will tell you I belong to probably 3 credit unions. I personally was member of 3 credit unions myself. One in the community where I was raised, one in the community where I moved when I got married, and I joined the one in town when I worked. So I was a member of 3 credit unions. But I volunteered at the one where I was raised. You keep that community spirit. And I volunteered there. And so that is movement. And then we also have the support of government, which is critical. But for the other sector to develop effectively, I, as a cooperative officer then, our role, it was a structured program where the government support was pivotal to the development of to the sector, because you needed persons who had the knowledge, the desire to assist. So the cooperative department in Dominica is structured in such a way that every community is served. You have the cooperative department, a commissioner, whatever they call them, a deputy, and an auditor. So I was the auditor. You also have an education officer in the cooperative department. And that education officer ensures there's education across the board for the whole sector, especially the management of the cooperatives. Like currently, I am battling with my gentleman here for data, right? If it was in Dominica, I'll go to the cooperative department for it and not deal directly with him, because there would be an officer in that district who lives in the district, not in town. You live in the community where you serve. So let us say you serve the area of what we call the northern part of the island. That's where you live. You don't go to the office. The office is your home, and you go to the credit unions, you go to the cooperatives in that vicinity, and you do not work 8 to 4. The cooperative department staff do not work 8 to 4 because most people are at work 8 to 4. Your clientele are at work after work. So you start working probably from 4 o'clock to probably 7 or 8 in the night. So it's very different. And the government support, like I keep saying, was critical for the development of the sector. The Credit Union League and the Co-op department work as a whole. The league has its own field officer. So there's this thrust of outreach. There's this thrust of constant outreach. I, as a cooperative officer, would leave my home probably in a short pants and a t-shirt, and you go to the fishermen where they are found. You go to the boxing plant when they have the farmers co-op, to the boxing, we call it boxing plant. We go to the beach. We have a board meeting on the beach, and you sit among them, and you become one of them, and you speak their language. I don't go telling them about spreadsheets and Excel. No, you tell them how you keep the money. When you draw the money, you keep the money here, you bring it to the bank. You speak their language. So I would sit among them, and you don't go with jacket and tie, you go for t-shirts. I'm being practical. A t-shirt and jeans or something like that. And you speak to the people, you will speak to them where they are. But we had government support. I was telling Ulla about it. We had government support where we would receive our mileage. I had a duty-free vehicle. Duty-free vehicle, mileage, and miss a PS. And so the officers in the department were supported, and it gave you the impetus to work because we know we had support. And it was properly structured. Like I said, each officer in a district, and the fishermen know, or the farmers know, Miss Marcy, or what they call me Pierre at one point, live in St. Joseph on a house up the hill. And they have a problem, they would knock on your door, Miss Marcy, whatever with the boat, can you call a credit union to get us funding and things like that. So we serve the cooperative departments as a liaison sometimes between the credit unions and the cooperatives. But like I was saying, we had strong government backing. We were paid by the government. But we had an education officer now, who the education officer is the one who would determine what the education process is. Although we on the field would feed that back to them. So you see a deficiency in a particular area, how do we correct that deficiency? So you don't come with high level stuff. Like I said, there's a deficiency in management. The officer would assist them with the bookkeeping, keeping of records, ensure records are kept properly, there's data, ensure that the management is trained. You have a treasurer, the treasurer can keep records, the president knows what his or her function is, and the president actually leads the organization. The secretary keeps minutes. Okay, you ask for the minute book and things like that. So we assist them. The officer assists them as much as possible. So how can SK adopt the model? I'm not sure exactly, but for that to happen, you have to have strong governmental support. Strong governmental support in assisting the cooperatives in training, right? Strong governmental support in training, strong governmental support in assisting the officers, in delivering the training, strong governmental support in creating the atmosphere where persons are willing to work, and the cooperatives themselves are aware that I have this person that I can rely on, who can help me, walk with me, hold my hands, take me to the water. They can make you drink, but they can take you to the water. They can assist you wherever they can. So that is mainly in my limited time. The model that I grew up with and we still currently adopt in Dominica.
Thank you very much. It is a lot of information to really put out in a short time frame. And so we appreciate our panelists for really trying to do that. Now, something stood out for me in Ms. Mathicot's presentation. I like that she said that the field officers were assigned to various communities. So you don't necessarily have to go in to town, somebody will come to you. And it almost seems as if we are regressing rather than progressing. So imagine, because I've heard Mr. Newton say back then when the credit union, the Nevis Credit Union was started, that's an example of what used to happen. But now everybody wants to sit in the office, in the AC, in the town, well dressed up, the stockings and the high heels, and we want the people to come to us. But she's saying, and Mr. Newton has said to me numerous times, that back then people were going to the members. Okay? So I think that's interesting, and it's something that we can definitely consider. Additionally, because you were going to meet the members, it means then that, according to her, you weren't working 8 to 4. Instead, you were working like 4 to 7 or 8 because you're meeting them when they are at home, right? That makes sense. How many of us in here are willing to work from 4 to 7 or 8 instead of 8 to 4? One little hand behind there. 2, and the hands went up a little bit. Say that again. How many workers you have in here? Okay. So the retirees not willing to come back and do this? A little side hustle? I don't know. And then she also mentioned, again, it's not just about meeting them where they are, but you're speaking their language and you're adapting to them. And so she mentioned, how you should approach people, because we have to understand that cooperatives, not just cooperatives, but individual members, they operate differently and people are at various capacities. And so you speak the language that they can relate to. So those are some of the key things that stood out, as well as the strong governmental support, particularly in training. That was a good one for me, training. Because you see, many times we get comfortable with the training that we have and we are not willing to enhance our skills. And so training, as one of the things she mentioned, really stood out. All right, so we'll move now. Thank you, Ms. Massicot, to Mr. Thompson on my immediate right. And Mr. Thompson will speak to us on cooperatives and food security. Mr. Thompson, I want you to talk about the opportunities for agriculture, housing, the workers, service-based cooperatives to address national priorities, such as our food security, affordable housing, and entrepreneurship. So that's the essence of where I want you to go. And remember, we are trying our best to keep the presentation succinct. And those of you who want to weigh in, you can send a text to 669-3358. Remember, our theme tonight is, or the topic tonight is, the relevance of cooperatives in nation building of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Thompson.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can do justice to the task at hand and get into the meat of things, because the moderator is quite stingy with time. Okay, we heard Mr. Newton's presentation and what he said in relation to producer cooperatives and the agricultural cooperatives. They are producer cooperatives. Let me start out by saying that perhaps we take agricultural cooperatives for granted, but they are very important. They certainly are micro businesses. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just give you some historical situations with these agricultural cooperatives, what they have done to prove relevance and to show other opportunities as we go on, okay? Clearly, they contribute to food security. I'm sure we have heard that expression from time to time. And perhaps my presentation could have been as simple as telling you all, look at the head table and look at what you see here, and then I shut up to prove the relevance, okay? So, because these are local produce. And currently there's an abundance of pineapples in the local market. Please enjoy them. And I can bet you they are produced, some of these are produced by our agricultural cooperatives. That proves relevance, okay? During COVID-19, our local farmers and members of our agricultural cooperatives were called upon to feed the nation, okay? That proves relevance. Local farm produce are also vital import substitutes, okay? And they are more nutritious and they save foreign exchange. And let me tell you clearly, yam, breadfruit, pumpkin, bananas, and sweet potato are excellent replacement for rice, flour, corn, noodles. Too much ramen is eaten here. And our producer cooperatives are also producers of raw material for local agro-processed goods. Now, I want to individualize it a bit now to take it and make it as simple as possible. Let's take, for example, the St. Kitts Farmers Cooperative that have really paved the way for local agricultural cooperatives. They contribute to food security, like I said. They provide members with agricultural supplies. They have known to provide members with agricultural supplies via project funding. They would have wrote projects and they got funding to support their members. So that is to empower them to produce food, okay? They have been known to supply local hotels and restaurants with local agricultural produce on a weekly basis. That happened years ago, okay? So they would have had a track record in that area. And this same cooperative, over the years, they would have actively participated in the St. Kitts annual agricultural fair, creating an enviable reputation for agricultural produce from St. Kitts. And they would have had processed products like hot sauce. And to further show relevance, these cooperatives once held a regional agricultural conference at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. And they were supported by ACARI, that is the Alliance for Caribbean Agriculture, okay? And WHO. And you had participation from right across the region. Let me just touch on the Sandy Point Agricultural Cooperative, which has opened
a daily marketing outlet for its members' produce. And you can get a wide variety of local produce. They do joint marketing of their members' produce. They actually have employees at this marketing outlet. They provide an annual award for top student performer in CXC Agricultural Science at the Charles E. Mills Secondary School. This is quite appreciative. Can put your hands together for that. This agricultural cooperative also hosts an annual agricultural food fair for World Food Day. And they contribute to Paxton Hospital and the elderly in the community. That proves relevance to our agricultural cooperatives. Now, I hope I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder because I know Tishon is just to my left. But I want to touch on Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperative. Have you ever been to Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperative's farm in Old Road? It is a farm you must visit. It takes you back to the Garden of Eden and relive the experience of Adam and Eve. But please put on clothes. They also offer nature tours. I encourage taxi operators to take tourists to this farm. So you see the link is here again between agriculture and tourism. Well done, Gideon Force. They have what we call an organic farm. And I encourage our people to buy and benefit health-wise from this local agricultural farmers co-op. Their products are chemical-free. Let me warn, if you do not pay the farmer, you will pay the pharmacy. Get fruits, get fresh seasoned for the pot, and get the vegetables. Did you know that the Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperative assists students with their agricultural science SBA at the Virtual High School? Did you know that they help Chewell Williams Primary School with their school garden? And did you know that they welcome cruise visitors to their farm? Did you know that there is a restaurant on their farm? Gideon Force, you are relevant, you prove relevance to our community. And then let me just touch on another one, just another two briefly. St. Kitts Beekeepers Cooperative once had honey on the local supermarket shelf. And they never used to stay on the shelf. In no time, they were gone. That's an area that we must develop again. That proves relevance. That proves there's a demand for local honey. And I can tell you that they produce unadulterated local honey. I could give you a little joke on this thing, but it's not really a joke. We had some people from the US and England who came here years ago. I'm speaking as a former registrar. In the early years of the Beekeepers Co-op, they would come in and they would conduct training with us for the beekeepers. And one day we took one of these experts in the field. And when we took him to the hives, he looked at the honey there in the hive and he said, "You all go ahead and reap it." We said, "No." He said, "Why not?" He said, "The honey is not ready for reaping. It's going to ferment if we go and reap it now." He said, "Don't worry about that. It will be off the shelf by time people would have, by the time it's ready to ferment, it would have been off the shelf and you have the people money and things like that." But they provide unadulterated honey. Okay? So congratulations to the St. Kitts Beekeepers Cooperative. And they, in the past, they also would have established hives in proximity to crop farms so that bees could perform pollination to boost fruits and vegetable production, thanks to the St. Kitts Beekeepers Cooperative. Now, let me touch on one other sector within the producer cooperative. We're looking at the processing aspect now. FAR's agricultural women and the St. Kitts agro-processors. They produce wine. They produce breadfruit chips, sweet potato chips, and plantain chips. Now, years ago, the Ministry of Agriculture had a breadfruit and breadnut value chain project. And that project promoted the importance of breadfruit and breadnut, but I want to stress especially breadfruit. And from that workshop, these two agro-processing groups introduced breadfruit chips. Most of the time we thought breadfruit was for maybe just baking and roasting and boiling, but they came with chips, a replacement snacks for a lot of the imports. Well done. They actually used the training to come up with a product. They are relevant. They also produce hot sauce. They also produce iced tea. Specifically, the St. Kitts agro-processors, at one time, they provided packaging material for processed goods. As a matter of fact, they almost operated like an agent for a bottle producing company out of Trinidad. And then the FAR's agricultural women, they donated solar panels and had them installed on the Newton Ground Primary School roof. So renewable energy. So our agricultural cooperatives have impacted the community. So they are very, very relevant. Okay? And so we must appreciate what they have done in our community. Okay? Now, have you heard about AgroStrip? Thanks to the local cooperative sector for popularizing this event and the associated venue for local agricultural marketing. You see all of them over there on the Frigate Bay Road where they call the AgroStrip? The local cooperative movement responsible for that. Okay? Now, I want to show now some opportunities. I know Melvin spoke about, show different types on, to sort of diversify the approach in the producer cooperatives. I'm going to get into that now. Now, we need help. And I say it here because as a former worker in the sector, I can identify with them. Now, Melvin identified how much of the weaknesses are in the sector with the producer co-ops. But one of my thoughts is that there's a need for leadership and people with specific skills. And so I want to encourage some of our more or better leaders and people out there in the public to become active, join these agricultural cooperatives, join these producer cooperatives. You would have used your talent, your experience, and your knowledge to help to build credit union. We can do the same for the agricultural cooperatives, the accountants, and these kind of people. Your talent is needed among our farmers co-op and our fishers co-op. Okay. Let me touch on an opportunity for the establishment of a cluster farm with electrified perimeter fence. Madam Pierce, I'm glad you're here. A cluster farm in this sense is going to serve one farmer's co-op or a certain membership of a farmer's co-op. This would be one huge piece of land, fenced with wire, most likely chain link wire, with a pulsating electricity, ringing the top as a deterrent to monkeys. We know what monkeys do, so we don't have to go there. But the aim is to keep them out. But you have a cluster farm, and then this huge acres and acres of farm will actually have different areas in there where the cooperative can produce different varieties of crops. And you're going to have, now what this will do, you will have reduced risk of monkey and pig damage because it is fenced, okay? And you'll have with the reduced risk of theft due to the presence of members on the farm at various times throughout the day. So what the members can know, can actually visit that farm at different points. Some can go in at sunrise, some can come in maybe around 9, and you have that staggering approach so that you have people on the farm working all the time. Your presence is a deterrent to thieves, okay? And your presence also is a deterrent to monkey, but when you are not there, you have the electrical charge to deter the monkeys, okay? And there's the opportunity for control the planting and production cycle to reduce the risk of market gluts and guarantee availability of local food. Also, if you want to provide water through dams and so, and you provide a dam to a cluster farm, look at how many farmers you would be helping at one time, okay? What will be required here from the co-op, because it will require leadership, commitment from all, annual investment in shares, and production of genuine food crops to actually deal with food security. And you can seek grants to purchase tractors and implement. I know one individual who actually bought a new tractor. So if they can do that, I think a co-op can do it. And I think there might be some funding available out there. Okay? Now, requirement from government. Madam PS. Reliable agricultural extension service will be needed, not just from cooperatives, from agriculture also. Assist with access to land and water. Seriously address the monkey population, provide subsidies to the co-op. Easy access to accommodate soft loans, better than what is at the development bank. Not to repay the loan 90 days after you would have gotten the loan, because you would then be using the loan to repay the loan. Maybe a proper financial institution with better terms in terms of interest, and a sort of a more relaxed approach, because you can't repay a loan until you start making money. And not because you're getting sales, because you may have some short-term crops like okras and those kind of things. But remember, the co-op is a business, and they have to plow back some of the money they make into the institution, okay? Maybe you can have a small business institution, a funding institution that can help in this case, okay? And we will need involvement of the Ministry of Health and Nutrition to promote the benefits of eating local. The million-dollar question is our country is expected to become a home port for cruise ship in late 2027. I saw some ceremony there earlier today. Now, we have several small-scale egg producers. Is there the possibility of establishing a poultry cooperative to supply eggs to at least one of these cruise ships? That's an opportunity there. Another area here is to explore the possibility of a worker cooperative as entrepreneurship. Our country will soon have an aging population. Some of our elderly citizens will require home care. as they may not want to be placed in an elderly home. This presents an opportunity for several of our young citizens to establish a home care workers cooperative where members are the employees. Some benefits of that: make business people out of ordinary people. Self-employment, as members are the employees, you will require loyalty, contribution to Social Security, employment security via contracts with elderly family. Okay? Requirements, again, leadership, investment in shares from the members, customer loyalty, accountability. What would be needed from government: easy access to accommodating staff loans, regulatory responsibility. Okay? Example for case study, home care. You can look up on the internet, Cooperative Home Care Association. And this is one that operates in New York. I actually did a quick read up on that. Okay? Then let me just throw out a next one quickly. This one might be a bit more challenging. Possibly the possibility of having a housing cooperative. This one is challenging, but our people continuously demand housing solution. There's a heavy reliance on NHC, but there's a need for other players to drive this thing. Okay, the people. There are people who may not necessarily want to own a home, but instead need a permanent place to live. A team of people with the same need can come together to build or acquire apartment houses through members' input. The cooperatives own the property, not any individual. Okay? The benefit is access to housing by members. Members own housing. Decisions, when I say members, the members collectively, not the individual. That's the co-op. Decisions are made by the members, no risk of eviction unless a member becomes delinquent or leaves. Requirement: investment in shares, monthly fees, or payments to cover maintenance, utilities, taxes, etc. Accountability is also required from the members. Requirement from government, regulatory responsibilities, and subsidies. I'm winding down. I'm being squeezed for time. Opportunity to establish the graduation of junior savings co-op. You know, we have the junior savings in schools. It has been very successful. And it operates more like junior credit union. Okay? But what happened is that at the end of the school year, the primary school students will go to high school, and then the high school students for fifth farmers, they will leave to go into the world of work, or they go to CFBC, or to go to further their studies elsewhere. Now, we want a system to ensure that these people are fed into adult cooperatives. So from the primary school, we want a system to graduate them into high school savings co-op, and then also the fifth farmers, when they are leaving, that we can graduate them from the high school into a credit union. We must have an annual injection of young people with ideas for new technology, new initiatives and all of that to keep the sector growing and buoyant and relevant to their needs. They are the leaders of tomorrow, so we have to cater for that. So we need this, but what we're going to need for this to happen, we're going to need for the Ministry of Cooperatives and the Ministry of Education. They need the political will for this to happen, because the sector is relevant to the actual development of our country. And the last area is an opportunity to establish producer cooperatives, I am very concerned about, like Sydney, about the agricultural cooperatives and the fishermen's cooperatives. And so what I am proposing here is for us, just like how we have the junior producer, the junior savings co-op in school, we have junior producer cooperatives established in some as a pilot project in a 1 or 2 high schools. They can get into the production of chips, breadfruit chips or plantain chips. The high school population in any school could become the market. The home corner could be where they do the processing. The agricultural science teacher could help them with the school garden to produce the raw material, or they can even get them from the agricultural cooperatives. And they can package them and sell them in the school. And you have the accounts department in the school that can help them to do the accounting and all of that. So actually, you're creating a farm system. And so I conclude that the sector is relevant. And I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. And, Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry that I had to, tell you to wrap it up, because I really like the suggestions that were coming forward. Weren't they good? Some very good suggestions. I love that last idea most about, having the junior producer cooperatives as a pilot project in the high schools, and the synergy between home economics, or they call it, what they call it now, food, nutrition, and health, as well as the agriculture program. So I really, really love that. I also noted the suggestion that we need more professionals who have already contributed to various aspects of nation building. You've worked in the credit unions, you've worked in the banks. It's now time to work with the producer cooperatives. I think that is a very, very good suggestion, because many of us are sitting on the sidelines and saying, this is not happening. What's missing? And so based on what he said, we are the ones who are missing. They already have the expertise in terms of knowing how to produce, but we can help them in terms of the business aspect. So there's that synergy. Lovely, lovely suggestion. He also mentioned the recruitment of the young people, so that when they leave the secondary school, the junior cooperative programs, they can then be inducted, or it's almost like a seamless transition into the regular credit union movement. And that is what should be happening, really. So it means that we are probably missing the mark, and we need to do a lot more recruitment in schools. I know that at the schools in Nevis, sometimes I have to go to the schools to talk about cooperatives and the difference between cooperatives and credit unions and the commercial banks sometimes. But this is saying then, hey, we probably need to go a step further, a little bit beyond that. So very, very, very good suggestion. And he gave some pointers to the permanent secretary. I think they're wonderful pointers. And so good job, Mr. Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, we are winding down. At this time, what we are going to do is to hear about some of the experiences from people within the sector. And so you have 2 persons left, and they're going to split the time, because we are going to be hearing about the cooperative experiences, the victory and challenges, and the future of the cooperatives. So we'll start with Dr. June Gishard-Pine, and she comes from the St. Kitts Beekeepers Cooperative from that perspective. And she'll just share with us some of the victories and challenges and what you think the future looks like for cooperatives. And right after, we'll go to Tishon Fleming Rasbora of the Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperative for his perspective on the same thing. So, Dr. Gishard-Pine, over to you.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. You could tell from my voice, I've spent a long time in the UK. I moved back here in 2016, as Erla said, and with an interest in beekeeping. So when I talk about what's happened in the beekeepers, I'm going to punctuate the story with 3 time points. The first time point is 2019, when I actually became involved with the Beekeepers Co-op. We were meeting regularly at the time. They were mainly farmers, and they were only interested really in producing honey as part of the Beekeeper Co-op. There were 2 women, including myself, who attended regularly, and maybe around 3 persons who were under 35, and the rest were senior beekeepers. At this time, George Rogers had been the president since its inception in 2001. I call George Rogers Captain Rogers because now that I'm on the executive, I can really appreciate what it took for him to hold on to that role for the best part of 20 years and keep it alive as it was when I became involved in 2019. And some years before I became involved, a piece of land in Nevis was allocated unofficially for us to keep beehives. So I reached the first challenge when I mentioned the word unofficial, because how it was for me was like what modern young people call situationships, where you want the relationship to be official, but it's not quite. They don't call you boyfriend, girlfriend, you don't come out in the day, that kind of thing. Or maybe a long-term common law relationship. I don't know if anyone's ever been involved in that, where one of you wants to be official and the other one is actively avoiding it. So you don't want to leave because you're not being mistreated. Obviously, you want to make it official, you're not being mistreated. But the other partner is just not saying what you want them to say or doing what you want them to do. So for you, it is not official and it doesn't come with all the things that is official, isn't part of the relationship. So that's how it felt for me when I joined in 2019. So both parties are making some sort of investment in the relationship that feels equitable, but you don't have the status, you don't have the responsibilities or the duties. It's not a true and equal partnership where both of you do your part. So written confirmation of that land was never forthcoming, was never a commitment to it. And so we were never able to feel that security and stability that comes with being part of a fully relationship with the authorities. So going now to 2022, sometimes I wonder that it was only 4 years ago that we got to where we are today. So in January 2022, with early strong support, we managed to get 11 of us in a room, and that is amazing. 11 of us in a room to vote in a new executive. And as someone with a professional history as a child psychologist, my perspective was that we needed to have fresh blood at the helm. I nominated young Monroe Tweed, who was just 25 at the time, but he had been attending most of the meetings. He always had something useful to say, and he participated in supporting the aims of the co-op. Because the finances of the co-op was under scrutiny, remember we'd been dormant for quite a long time. We were dormant for about 15 years. Without the support of audited accounts, we were only able to vote in an interim executive. 5 of us were elected, and by the first meeting, 1 had already resigned. So that brings me to the next challenge. It is very, very difficult to identify members of the community where the interest, time, ambition to see the co-op succeed, and the commitment to voluntary work converge. I would say 100 varies, very, 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 100 varies difficult to find members of the community where all of those 4 points converge. So I can say that part of any crippling of a co-op comes also from us as a community, as well as from the authorities. So we both have to do our part. So coming to now 2026, 4 years later, what I can report to you is that we won an award from the Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. It was a small amount of $2,500 US, but it was a proposal written by Monroe. So in exchange for those funds, we would offer educational experiences for their trainee veterinarians. And we also do a lecture every year. And we could buy some equipment to start generating an income for the co-op as well. Now, 2 members gave us access to their resources to make boxes and frames at a series of workshops. 1 member made a financial investment to buy additional raw materials. Because of the financial mire, we had to open a new account, and it was recommended we use First Federal, which is also a co-op, as you know, and Dawn is here. But that was no easy feat and involved about 8 trips to the bank. So it takes up a lot of time to do these things on a voluntary basis. And At the time, they didn't accept international money through international channels. So we had to open a second account with the National Bank. And again, that took a lot of processing of visiting to and from the bank. So it takes up a lot of time to support us in those sorts of activities. We applied for an SGP grant for the maximum of 75,000 US, which is about 191 Eastern Caribbean dollars, to open a honey farm. But they would not approve the grant without the land. As I said before, we did not have any official right to any land. So that was another channel. But we were fortunate to be given a 3-year lease free of charge from a private landowner. But this was replaced by finally being given written permission to access some agricultural land where we are today in Virchow's Mountain. So we were given that land when the government changed. We've just completed phase 1 of what ended up being a very long and drawn out process. About 15% of the grant went into import duties. So reducing or waiving this would have been a help for a co-op. We are seeking funds for phase 2 to bring it up to a standard to receive local and international tourists. We do our own fundraising, of course, selling honey barbecues, breakfast smoothies, bingo nights, etc. But the amount we can generate is insufficient for the task to complete the honey farm. So for the 4 years that we've been revived, we entered the regional honey shows. In the first one, the fourth one is later this year. In the first one, we were placed second and third out of all of the OECS islands. And in last year's one of our beekeepers won in 2 categories. He won the 2 categories just last year, and a beekeeper from Nevis won overall. So we know our honey is good. Increasing capacity of active members remains a challenge, especially we need to attract females. We want to produce red honey exclusive to St. Kitts by planting acres of sorrel. So by sheer accident, one of our beekeepers had cut 2 acres of sorrel, and the honey was actually naturally red. So we actually, because sorrel is such a popular drink, we want to produce that exclusive to St. Kitts. When the tourists come, we want them to remember they were here in St. Kitts because that red honey came from St. Kitts and nowhere else. We have already produced red honey twice now, and we are going to be making soaps using local fruits and honey. We're going to be making honey wines and beverages, and we're going to be doing walking and driving tours on the farm. So I find that when you say bees to anyone, male or female, they tend to panic. You say bees, they go, "Ah, I don't like bees." But when you say honey, they go, So in the cooperative, we need to do our part. We need to market what we're able to offer to a wider range of the community about the work of the bees. Bees are unique because they are essential for plant, animal, and human life. The plants feed the animals and humans, and the nutrients of honey and propolis have infinite positives for human health. I have a saying that for anything to work, we have to believe in it. And that is what we need, is more people that believe in the truth about the importance of bees to plant, animal, and human life. I close with a metaphor besides the situationship thing. Another metaphor. I don't know if you all know about Russian dolls, babushka dolls. They're the wooden dolls where there's a big one and you take off the top and there's a smaller one, you take off the top and smaller till you get to the tiniest doll. And that's sometimes how it feels being a part of a co-op, that we're just a little organization deep inside of all the other big, important, louder, more demanding, more important elements to the authorities and to the public. Sometimes that's how it feels, that we're just insignificant. But it's just my nature that I see myself as the biggest doll, not just because of my size. I think about co-ops as the VIPs. So some of the future is up to us as co-op members to think big and to act bigger. And maybe, just maybe, the authorities will take us on as a viable equal. We want to open the farm for our 25th anniversary, which is in November. And we hope you can all spread the word and maybe be there to celebrate with us, because this honey farm is a national resource and is going to be the first in the whole Leeward Islands. and it's going to have an Appy theme park. It's going to be the first Appy theme park that you'll experience in the whole entire Caribbean. So we're very proud of that, and we really expect and want the support of you all. So that's all I wanted to say.
Wow. Very good presentation where you showed that balance. You know, you didn't just talk about the challenges, you talked about the victories and some key points coming out of that. I am going to segue into our final presenter and then we'll come back. And so now over to Tishon Fleming of the Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperative. We heard a little bit about Gideon Force earlier, but we'll give you an opportunity to share from your perspective the victories, the challenges, and the future of cooperatives. Mr. Fleming.
Yes, I give thanks. I just want to say thanks to all who come today and even give the Gideon Force a chance to express and to give back their own shares of what we experienced thus far. I want to say thanks to the members from the Gideon Force Farm too for coming, especially this is the core member where we have the executive exactly. All the members who are here, so ensure that we are committed even to be coming to this sort of settings. Thanks to the panelists also to mention us as a part of their discussion. We appreciate all the ISDM support thus far, even from the PS and from Earl still not here, but we give thanks to all the cooperative unit for all the support that we have given over the years. But I also want to say thanks to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, most of all, for having us here. And life itself comes from the Father. And because we're talking about cooperative, we know Father said where two and three are gathered, there He would be in the midst of us. So we know, even the eyes of the Almighty, He hoped that we gather together that He can be there and actually take us to where we want to be still. I will give a little bit history of why Gideon Force stands for and where the mission is. You know, our whole mission is to have what you call a healthy way of life. And we have to recognize the importance of health. It's not just a simple talk as we sometimes throw it across, but today our health is very difficult to deal with. I know sometimes we overlook the situation. We talk about the pandemic, but I think that the crisis that we are facing today, they're much bigger than the pandemic in terms of, you know, the heart diseases and stroke and all these other things that we're hearing that coming on our people. Right? So it's very important for us to acknowledge the purpose of farming. And I want to say thanks to all farmers, even if you're not doing organic farming like the Gideon. So even, you know, going out there and working so hard, you know, it's hard work it is. You know, the sun is very hot, you know, and sometimes the condition could be uncomfortable. You know, so I just want to give thanks also to the members of the Gideon Force, because it's not so simple as for cooperative to really go forward. You know, we talk about the money cooperative, which is a little bit more different, but when you have co-ops, such as farm co-ops or officials co-ops, it's a little bit challenging, you know, and I think that what we have in our group is that we actually develop love and trust for each other over the years, you know, and that's very important to have love. You know, love is important to be among members, you know, so we give thanks for that. And you have to have trust, you know, because trust is important when you're dealing with monies, especially. Most cooperative collapse because of sometimes the money issues. And I'm the treasurer for the group, and so there's a lot of pressure when you have to be the treasurer because you know you have a lot of responsibilities, you know. So, you know, it's a hard job too, still to just keep the books in shape, but you have to be as honest as you can and be transparent. So I think what our group tends to do, and the president must have went to the back room, but he always encouraged transparency, you know. Okay. But transparency is important, guys. You know, so every member, every time we have meeting, and we have meeting regular, you know, we have meeting at least once every month, the last Sunday in the month. And even though sometimes it's a little bit overbearing, I think it's important to have meetings to discuss everything. So we put everything on the table. And sometimes the discussion are not always favorable. Sometimes we leave not, you know, agreeing, because we are humans. And even though we are spiritual people, we still have these different opinions, you know. And we tend to have a creed, and the creed helps us to set our goals, our objectives straightforward. And it's a creed that comes from like the biblical. We say let the hunger be fed, the naked be clothed, the sick nourished, infants cared for, age protected. And so in these areas, because if you check it out, the hunger be fed, you're looking at food security, you know, and food security is a big talk because as the minister was saying today, and he was on one of the stations that, you know, there's a few things that we can live without, well, we can't live without food, right? And Every day we have to eat. We don't know about doctors and we don't know about lawyers, but every day the farmer is so important. And we don't get a respect, I'll be honest still. Sometimes we are the least of, the profession. And sometimes we look like we are uneducated. But education don't feed us, it's these techniques and methods. Yeah, so so for us in terms of sustainability, we recognize the importance of having that consistency. So what we had to do, we have to build a system that can really continue even when we don't have the time to push it. So we had to build a diverse ecosystem in a sense, and I will go a little bit into that as we go continue. The naked be closed is like for us it's a spiritual nakedness, because in everything that we do, God have to be into it, no matter where we at. And so we recognize the importance of that spiritual strength, and that also the first law of our cooperative, not the cooperative laws, the laws of the Almighty. Where if you can do the laws of the Almighty, I think it's going to be okay for the other common human laws. So we keep those laws, and we have a churchical, and then we have a core member that overlook the COP, and that's important too. They are not all members of the executive, but it's a core member that consists of most of the elders that make sure the fundamental reason are always stuck to. We say the sick nourish, and I spoke about the sicknesses that we have, and it's a lot of sicknesses, guys. We have to find a way to stop it, and we encourage our people to eat more local, eat and we say more organic if it's possible. We don't have everything, but we try to plant everything, and we can't be ignorant to eating, but we say eat more locally, and get more in communication with the farmers. Go to farms. Most of the people who come to our farm is the foreigners, and it's sometimes strange because the foreigners come from out with a different mentality where they want to see where the food coming from. And our farm, you can reap your food, and that they're fresh. Some of y'all may never even, maybe reap a pineapple, as we spoke about pineapple. So it's good to come to farm like ours, then you can have your food fresh. And fresh is important, high in nutrition, in terms of last and longer shelf life all of these are important for sustainability, because you don't want to buy something that's gonna just in a minute and just gonna waste. So our mission here still is to find all the ways that we can strengthen a household and at the same time strengthen life. And we say the infants get for, and we speak a lot about the youths, right? And the youths are very important for the consistency, for the continuous of everything, not just for crops, not for agriculture, but youths are important. And we do a few things with our youths in our community, and we have, for example, coming to our farm, any youth tour is free. So we don't make it a barrier to stop the youth from coming. We make it as easy as possible. So, like, for example, this summer we're going to be camp time. So we're going to have a lot of campers going to come. We don't have about a 2 or 3 already done booked to come to the farm. Because when they come to the farm, they usually get a chance to see a different kind of way of farm. We're not going to use certain role like sexy farm, but we're using a more modernized technique along with the traditional long-term techniques. And we try to bring it up to standard, because we hear a lot about like technology and this kind of system. And so what we do on our farm, we bring it to be a little more attractive. Farming sometimes seems a little bit boring, a little bit challenging, but so we have different structures on our farm that attract the youth, showing them more simpler farm of showing different techniques, like having orchards, just having vegetables, having like an animal area. So we do what you call integrated agriculture, because we have animals also as a part of our system. And animals are important. We don't eat animals though, but they have the use, we want fertilizer. You cut the cost of inputs. And if inputs costs are cut, it means the cost of the product could be stable. And what you have to understand, the more you go organic, is the cheaper the food can be. But we're a little ignorant because we want to be more of quantity. And Gideon don't go for quantity, we go for quality. So, yeah. And so we do CXC, as Sir Thompson said, he was one of our leaders in the past, and we give thanks for even his effort. But we do exam for some of the students from, especially in Bastia, the 2 high schools in Bastia and the one in our community, the Vultures University. Yeah, but yeah, man, a big up to the Vultures, But yeah, so we do SBAs every year for maybe for about a decade now. We don't go about bragging about these things, but if we ask, how we do communicate with the youths. We do SB, and it's not only for agriculture, it's only for geography, because geography is the head of everything. Practically, talk about agriculture, give you about more landscape and everything, but it's more geography. And the fact that our information, is being asked over the years, it means that CXC accept our answers, and it's got to be the getting it right. Got to keep coming back, Yeah, I always say they have to be the getting it right, because I don't think, like for this year, the head teacher came to our farm from the voter high because he recognized over the years we've been supporting the school, and he had to come and see for himself, and he was pleased, and we give thanks that we could do that for our youths, right? And right now we're linking with the primary school, and we want to form a club there. And as you all speak about how we could improve cooperative, when we want to form a club, we want to form a club, as I say, a junior corp sort of energy. But we want them to be the one to be the president and be all of these executive members, but we overlook it along with the teachers and the parents. So we already start the groundworks of the farming, but we haven't introduced the whole system as yet to the school. So we want to start for the new term that's going to be in September, and we want to make sure that you're going to be a little bumpy when you start things, but we think that because the president had it already before a few years back, and he had it functioning, so we think that we can get it back up and running. So our youth can have a stance to understand why cooperative. We can't wait till they come adults to open up their mind to these things, and yeah, we have to start with the youth, and they have to be realistic. They have to see the food planting and the reaping, even eating it, selling it. They have to see the whole process, that they could really, okay, I could do this. Yeah, I want to do this. So I would say to all cops, whichever cop that you're holding up to, you have to find ways to introduce the youths. And one thing that we do too with our youth improvement, we are family oriented as members of the organization. So our children have to join the COOP. They understand. When I say they understand, because we are the parents, they understand. As he talked about back in our community where they start at an older age. Our youth, they come to the meetings and we discuss it. I discuss it with my children, the importance of being a part of the COOP. And they have to be a part of the COOP until they're old enough to say, I don't want to be anymore. And this is important. Sometimes you have to force things, right? Sometimes you have to force things for it to work. And that will happen to our generation. Most of our generation, our youth go to other professions and leave what we already had established. And sometimes they go and they never really get it. And what we had, it vanished when it could have been something. So we let our youth know the importance of that. And we do, when we have our tours that are educational, we let them know as much as we can, and we let them to talk. We give them a chance to say what they think, because there's always room for improvement, and there's always new information that you can hear from even a child. And so that's one of the things that we do too as a group. We're a little different to most of the cooperative, but we have set in it that we have one plot that all the members come to. But most of the other group like SPACs, they're individual farmers that sell everything at one spot. But we're a little bit different in a way. Even though the members them have their own farm, we have one spot that belongs to the entire group. And so everybody come to that, so that have to continue, that have to be sustained. And then what we do for the other members, we support them when we can with their group, with their work, but we sell everything to the cooperative. Everything goes to the cooperative. And so in that way, we always make a percentage from everything that we sell. And that percentage help back the member into time when he maybe need a strength, right? So, and what we're doing right now for a lot of the community, we're trying to imply the backyard farmers them as a part of our sales adventure, right? So we have so much small little people who have a little backyard, and how could I get these sell? Okay, tell me what you have and bring it to me. I get this sell for you. And that encourage the backyard farmers to continue. They feel a part of something, and they open up doors for us to get members too. Because if they see honesty honesty goes a long way. If they see you're capable of giving them what you call that support, they will continue, going. So these are some of the ways that we've been, bringing in members. Our group is at least 23 strong. And the next thing again, we don't put members to do things that they don't want to do. Like, even though we're an agriculture group, we don't tell everybody come to do farming, because you could shove away people because maybe they're not farmers, but they want to be a part of it. So we have members that they are skilled into maybe carpentry, they're skilled in maybe painting, they're good on plumbing. And so we find their part for them to play. And we let them understand the importance of importance of what the impact is as a part of the group. I let them know that they just have to be a farmer, because I think that's also could be discouraging for cooperative, because sometimes some members are going to be weaker than some, and so we try not to run guys, but we try to find ways to incorporate them, right? Uh, okay, and I want to go to some of our goals, like as I say, the vegetable production that we touch on food security. We also have different ways of selling our products. We diversify the products. We don't just sell a vegetable anymore. We have a veggie shop on the farm. That means we're selling a byproduct, right? And because we have to find ways to make the product give it more value, right? So you add value when you put it to the shop. And it helps you with the waste material too, because sometimes you have something that's sellable. Maybe you get a bad shape, you get booze on the cheap, but you can use into the shop, to add that value to it, right? So we add value by having our veg shop, and we sell, fresh and healthy products. We don't just talk about a healthy way of life, but we give you also a product. So we sell a lunch every day. You have to order it. We sell juice, we sell wraps, and we try to do everything local. We try to have most of our stuff from the farm. So we give the farm to the table effect, right? We don't want to sound like, the entire system, where, because these things been there all the time, really, just that we're giving them new names. But our elders did some great for us, and I must big up the elders, right? I always have to big up the elders, for the work they have done over the years for farming and towards agriculture. Because this system that we have, we incorporate what they had given to us, and we upgrade it. We have animal products. In terms of, like, we talk about the bees. Lady has spoken about the bees. We have bees because, as an organic farm, bees are very important for our pollination. We take this thing very serious. The diversity that I've spoken about isn't just about, a talk, but we have it there because we see today with the hot sun, it's really striving. We are able to deal with most of the climate, if it's a rainy or if it's a sunny. And having these bees, they help improve pollination, that help produce production. This is very important for farmers, because some flowers, they open for at least like 6-7 hours, and if it's a still there were no wind blowing for cross pollination, you can be in a problem, right? So we have this sort of situation. Community development, as I said, we support schools, but we support things like the garden homes. We go there and we try to we build back up the garden. We donate plants to them. We donate food and vegetables to them. We don't like to speak about this thing because the Bible said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand do. And we are very biblical people, right? But sometimes I guess we have to say, we support the hospital over the years. And these two areas, they're specifically chosen because food is very essential in these areas for these people, especially the hospital. We have to eat a certain kind of food to recover based upon what the condition is. Now we do self-investment too, guys. As a group, we do a lot of self-investment. Like we buy some tents lately because we have to always rely on the government to borrow tents and give us tents, right? So, yeah, we give thanks. And having these tents, they're not just for us to use. We still could rent them to other co-ops, right? And it's a business. Now we tend to get chairs and tables, so we can come right out of the co-op. Yeah, it's good. It's good when you get a chance to be helped for a few years, but you have to help yourself. And so what we try to do with most of the money that we make, we try to invest it back, majority of the time, back to the cooperative. So having this investment, we have a veggie shop that we built on our own, right? From what we make as in the farm, and that's important because the members, they're making some heavy sacrifices to guys, because to allow so much of the money go back, well, years going to mean that you really time up. Yeah, sorry, I had to get to the sharp one, guy. But hey, I just want to say thanks again for having us, and we appreciate, this night and this day. If it's a night or it's a day, but we appreciate the eyes them choosing the Gideon to be a part of it. And I just want to say thanks once more. Yeah, blessed.
Okay, we thank Mr. Fleming of the Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperative for that very comprehensive report. He too spoke of the victory and the challenges. I'm really happy that I came here. I got to learn so much more about cooperatives because I work in the credit union. Many times I focus on the financial aspect. And so I'm already thinking of how can I can be a little bit more involved? How can I get my daughter more involved? I think over this summer we're gonna come down and visit some of these farms because it sounds really good. Sounds really good. Now we are winding down, we are wrapping up, but I just want to end properly. We had a comment through text that said financial cooperatives promote individualistic behavior when giving loans because we can't take loans as producer cooperatives. Rather, you have to take them as individuals. So that's one of the comments that came out on the, and I'm hearing some it's trues here. That's one of the comments that came through text. Another one came, but it was addressed in one of the presentations. Mr. Newton, as someone who has worked in the credit union movement for some time, can you comment?
That's unfortunate. From the Nevis Credit Union's experience over the years, we have supported especially the fishermen cooperative, giving loans to the cooperative, not individuals. So that is something that is possible and has been happening from the Nevis end, for sure.
One of the things I think is probably a good time to mention is reiterate Mr. Edwards' comment earlier about that legislation. Because you see, a lot of things are guided by legislation. And so if we are to get that revised legislation up and running, then I think that will be down to our benefit. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today's topic was the relevance of cooperatives in nation building in St. Kitts and Nevis. And based on the discussion, to me, it is saying that cooperatives are still very relevant. Do you agree? But we have some work to do. Do you agree with that? We have some work to do. And so they're relevant, but we have some work to do. I want each of us to ask ourselves, how can we help to boost the cooperative movement? Remember that a cooperative, as I said at the start, a cooperative is a business or organization owned and run by its members. Instead of maximizing the profit for outside shareholders, the cooperatives focus on giving members equal voting power and sharing financial benefits. This is important to our development. We can't just keep talking and talking and talking about food security, about any health and these non-communicable diseases. We can't just keep talking about all these things if we are not supporting the cooperatives that are trying to help us to achieve our goals, right? And so it's a sort of hand-go, hand-come relationship. And we know, and I'm not trying to be racist in any sort, but there is a particular group of people, and I like them and I admire them. Their eyes look something like mine, but just a little bit more slant. And they work together. You know, they get their things in bulk and they share. And that is one of the things we need to go back to doing, rather than looking at your neighbor and you have more than your neighbor, but you don't want your neighbor to have just as much as you. You know, that is, we might have to start to change our mentality, our thinking. And I like that the brother over here mentioned, Rasbora, Mr. Fleming mentioned that they keep their spirituality at the helm because it helps to guide their principles. And I know that that is very important in the Rastafari movement. My father is a Rasta, don't mind all these things on my head. My father is a Rasta, and I actually love him a lot more now that he's a Rasta, because, you know, I see the ethos, you know, the principles, you know, make you love him more. And so, guys, these are some of the things we really need to consider. So as we wind down, I want to commend Miss Allen and her team. I want to commend the panelists. I want to commend our PS, and I want to commend all of you physically in the room and those who've joined online for being part of COOP Talk. And let us not just let tonight's activity be a talk shop. Let us not just let it be all talk. Let us really go back to our homes and our offices and our cooperatives and find ways of really moving the cooperative movement. It's a movement, which means there should be some activity. We can't stand still. We've been speaking tonight on the relevance of cooperatives in nation building of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we could not have done it without Mr. Ivor Keithley Phillip, who spoke first about the economic impact and national development. Mr. G. Sidney Newton right here, who spoke about strengthening financial resilience and member empowerment. Mr. St. Clair Hodge on the end, who spoke about innovation, technology, and youth engagement. Sherilla Massicott, expanding the cooperative models beyond finance, the Dominica model, and how it can be utilized in SKN. We heard from Mr. Thompson, who spoke about cooperatives and food security. Then we heard of the victories and challenges, as well as the future of cooperatives from Dr. June Gishard Pine, St. Kitts Beekeepers Cooperative, and Tishon Fleming of the Gideon Force Agricultural Cooperatives. I'm JD Keynes, and it's been my pleasure moderating this evening's COOP Talk. Get home safely.
Okay. Thank you. Well, what an evening. What a lot of information that was imparted. And I am sure that now we know a lot more about cooperatives. I heard Ms. Keynes say that she has learned quite so much. And I know that all of us in this room, and indeed those who are online, have learned so much about cooperatives. It's a lot of information. We have to condense it, and we have to go back as a team in our ministry and to see what we can do to improve. I want to call on Ms. Delreen Taylor, our PS, just to share what her thoughts are concerning this evening's COOP Talk. Ms. Taylor, put your hands together for our permanent secretary.
Good evening, everyone. Allow me to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to our moderator and our panelists here. I would like to ask them to stand, please. If you agree with me that they did an exceptional job, give them a round of applause. I am very, very much impressed. You could now have a seat. I would like to now also invite the team from the Department of Cooperative to please stand. And no one is missing, I think, other than, what's her name, Jessica Isaac, who maintains the office. This is the team behind what is happening this evening. And I think that also deserves another round of applause. It's only 4 of them, right? And I also want to thank you, our cooperative family, and anyone else who would have joined us to taking the time out of your busy schedule and seeing the importance or the relevance of the strengthening our cooperative movement. This evening has reaffirmed that cooperatives are not simply just organizations. They are instruments of nation building. They empower people, strengthen communities, promote economic inclusion, and create opportunities for sustainable development. As I listen to the conversation this evening, several key points stood out. We heard about innovation and the need to identify new opportunities for cooperatives beyond the traditional sectors, of Agriculture and Fisheries, the emphasis on the importance of legislative reform to modernize the sector. And I have before myself and the team some suggestions in terms of amendments to that legislation, and you have our commitment that that would be of utmost priority. And also to strengthen governance and to ensure that our cooperative framework remains relevant, not just for now, but for the future. We also heard about the role of cooperatives in promoting financial literacy. Very, very important. One of the major challenges that not just cooperative persons experience, but our small business sector as well, when they talk about access to finance. When we would have sit with various financial institutions, some of the pain points came out that some of the reasons why some persons are not qualifying for the financial assistance or capital injection is because they just do not have the data. They do not have the records, right? And that is critically important for us to work with our cooperatives, work with our small business sector, and ensuring that they have that financial knowledge and know-how so that they can be the best representative of themselves when they are seeking financial support. We also heard about improving household economic stability, encouraging our youth, our young people, and I must say the Gideon Force, the beekeepers, and along with other producer corps have been doing an exceptional job in trying to be inclusive when it comes to our youths. Embracing technology and creating new pathways for entrepreneurship and community development. While each of these discussions focus on different aspects of movement, one word remained at the center of them all: cooperation. If we are to build the transformational, thriving, and sustainable cooperative sector we envision for St. Kitts and Nevis, then cooperation must remain at the heart of everything we do. Shared by our colleague from the credit union, Mr. Hodge himself. That cooperation must extend beyond individual cooperatives. It must include government, the St. Kitts and Nevis National League, financial cooperative, producer corp, emerging cooperatives, our educational institution, and the private sector, development partners, and our communities. Every stakeholder has a role to play. We cannot do it on our own. Hence, the reason why we establish cooperative, it's about working and collaborating together. As the ministry responsible for cooperative, we remain committed in creating an enabling environment for that collaboration to flourish through legislation modernization, capacity building, public education, strong governance, and strategic partnership. We will continue working to position the cooperative movement as a key pillar of our national development. The Department of Cooperative recognizes that our own capacity is not without limitations. Yet we remain resolute in our role as an advocate, a facilitator, and a partner of the cooperative movement. We will continue to champion the interests of the cooperatives, strengthen the legislation and institutional framework to foster and strengthen strategic partnerships and pursue opportunities that enable cooperatives to grow, innovate, and thrive. We remain steadfast in our commitment to advocating on behalf of the cooperative movement and ensuring that every voice is continued to be heard as we shape the future of our nation's development. If we are serious about building a sustainable island state, then we also must be serious about building a stronger cooperative movement. The value that defines cooperative shared responsibility, inclusion, democratic participation, resilience, and concern for community are the very values that will help to achieve this vision. My hope, along with the moderator, is for this evening's discussion to not end here. When we leave this room, we must be able to collaborate and partner with each other to ensure that this vision becomes a reality. Let us continue to work together to build a cooperative sector that would be innovative, diverse, resilient, and equipped to meet the challenges and opportunities of the future. Thank you once again for your participation, your insights, and for your unwavering commitment to the cooperative movement. I look forward to working alongside many of you to ensure that this happens. Good evening.
Well, I just want to say I almost finished my notepad. So we have lots to discuss when we go back to the department. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to SKNNCL for partnering with us to make tonight possible. We appreciate your continued cooperation. Now, I'd like us once again to give our panelists a grand round of applause. They dropped a lot of nuggets this evening. Thank you, our audience, for coming here this evening, both physically and online, to participate in this very important conversation. We are also very grateful to CCCU for allowing us to host COOP Talk here tonight, and to Oddbit Solutions for live streaming the event. COOP Talk is part of our series of activities in celebration of International Cooperatives Day, which is actually this Saturday. Our minister will be addressing the nation via several radio stations and on Create TV, which we're actually streaming on right now. I would also like to tell you about the rest of our events. We have two more. One is actually on Friday. It's called InfoStrip, where we would have information exchange and demonstrations. It is very valuable not only to our cooperatives, but people who are interested in farming businesses or are already small business operators. We will have a lot of experts and professionals there from Bureau of Standards, AICA, Ross University, Department of Agriculture, Marine Resources, ASAP Creative Group, Dessel Hamilton, etc. It's a lot of information. As I said earlier this week, when things are free, you take two, but we're saying take all, right? Because this is very important. As we see here, there's a lot of room for growth. And Dessel Hamilton, he was actually be speaking about tourism integration. So I think that that is something that's very important, especially seeing that we are going to be a home port next year. Take full advantage, do not let opportunities pass you by. Then we have Taste and See next Saturday, which is the 11th of July. And that is where you can come and taste and see and experience the offerings of the cooperatives. We will have taste passports on sale where you can have a taste journey. They only cost $20. And you can, as we said, taste the different offerings of the cooperative. So if one cooperative has 2 or 3 samples, you can taste them all. But don't go back for extras. You have to buy another passport. So once again, we thank you all for coming here. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening and that you, as many have said, not just take the information and say, oh, that was good, and go home and by tomorrow, you know, Men in Black that have the little flasher when they just take all your memories. Please don't let it be like that. Let us use the information and let us grow the cooperative sector, because it is a viable way for us to alleviate poverty and create jobs for our people. Thank you so much. You may now all go outside and grab some goodies on your way out.